So good morning again, folks. My name is Tashana Johnson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the program managers for the Whole You, your Wellbeing and Engagement team. So thankful you're all able to be in space with us today, and thankful, of course, to have the LiveWell team here, or some of our LiveWell team here, as the presenters for today's content. Please interact as you're able to, whether that's using the chat box, using reactions, anything that comes up. We'll be discussing and learning about self-compassion, how to build and manage it, and how to work with kind of the goals that we set for ourselves. I'm going to pause here and pass the baton over to Rachel to get us started. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel, and fellow LiveWell team. Take it away.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Rachel. I'm a junior here. I use she, her pronouns. I'm studying food systems, nutrition, and health, and I'm minoring in education. I am here presenting with Chloe.
Yes. Hey, everyone. My name is Chloe. I am a third year here studying public health and biology. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm very excited to talk about New Year's resolutions with you all. So to start off, we kind of want to give a rundown on LiveWell, what we are, what we do. So we are the Center for Student Advocacy, Training, and Education here on campus. And through our work, we combine themes of empowerment, evidence-based knowledge, and other effective skills. And through this, we aim to help build not only resilient students, but also adults, because a lot of the skills that we teach in our workshops can be carried on well into our adult lives. We're located in Fitness Center West over on West Campus, and we have a variety of staff-led and student-led services, which we'll jump right into now.
Awesome. So LiveWell can be broken off into two branches. First, we have our student-run services, which is where Chloe and I come in, and we're peer health educators. So throughout the entire school year, we're putting on a bunch of educational workshops and programs, just like this one, to a lot of different RSOs, to Greek life, on a bunch of different health and wellness topics, such as mental health, physical health, sleep, nutrition. There are so many. You can check us out on our website. We also have our peer wellness coaching service. This is when a few of our peer health educators get some additional training. And then you all have an opportunity to create a one-on-one goal-oriented session. So really any sort of goal you're trying to reach, you want help with time management, sleep, relationships, really anything like that, you can come and talk to a peer wellness coach and they'll help you get some skills in order to reach those goals. And then finally, we have our online tools. First, we have our e-checkup. This is just a way to put in your alcohol and cannabis consumption, and it'll show you what your consumption is like compared to other college students around the country. It's completely free and confidential. It's just a way to learn more and do some reflection and also learn some additional resources. And then we also have our Healthy Huskies e-magazines. Here we have some cool wellness articles and some recipes. So I checked that out. All of our services that we're going over are completely free, and they're also offered on both in person and over Zoom, whatever you are most comfortable with.
Yeah, so onto our staff services. We have a variety of different staff services that are always free for students and staff on campus. Our first staff service is student care, and we like to refer to student care as your first stop to wellness here at UW. Because UW is so big, it can be kind of hard or overwhelming to navigate the wide range of resources available. So if there is anything impacting your academic success here at the university, you can meet with our student care coordinator, Amanda, and she can guide you to the right resource for you, whether that be on or off campus. So for example, she can help with things like applying for hardship withdrawal or quarter drops, family emergencies, food or rent insecurities, or kind of anything that is impacting your time here at UW. We also have a survivor support and advocacy program. So LiveWell houses the two only confidential advocates here on campus. So they work with survivors of people impacted by relationship violence, stalking, sexual assault, and or sexual harassment. And as a confidential advocate, they are not mandated reporters. So anything that you tell them is confidential, but they can provide and empower survivors with options and resources for safety and healing, including what options someone has for reporting if they would like to do so. And finally, we also have our alcohol and other drugs consultation. So these are one-on-one, non-judgmental sessions with a professional staff member who can work with students who want to learn about their individual consumption of alcohol or other substances. This is very education oriented. So whether if it's behavior that includes consuming things underage or consuming illegal substances, that's a non-judgmental session, so you can still get information education on that, and learn more about things like harm reduction skills and just impacts on life overall. But yes, again, these are all free and available to students and staff here on campus. But yeah, so now we're going to shift gears into what we will be talking about today.
Yeah, so this is just a quick outline going over some of the things that we're going to talk about throughout this entire workshop. First, we're going to talk about some common themes across New Year's resolutions, go over some themes you may have heard. And then we're going to do a fun little myth versus fact activity to go over some reasons why people may not feel successful in their New Year's resolution. And then next, we're going to go over some skills for goal setting and go over some different skills that we can use to reach our goals. And then finally, we're going to talk about self-compassion and how we can use that as a skill in relation to our New Year's resolution.
We have a meeting. So.
Oh, you have a meeting. Okay.
Again, we learned at the beginning, but if this is a very interactive workshop, so we'd really appreciate your participation. And just a reminder, make sure you're muted throughout this workshop. Thank you. But with that, we will get started. We want to go to the next slide. Awesome. And so we are going to start off with this question. I'd love to hear some of your all's thoughts. If anyone feels comfortable unmiking, you can do that, or we could also use the chat box. But what are some common New Year's resolutions that y'all have heard of?
Having less screen time.
Absolutely. Ooh. Yeah, more exercise, losing weight, go to the gym. Definitely a lot of goals when it comes to like our physical health. Sleep, reading more, dieting, cooking at home, drinking less coffee and alcohol.
Oh, sorry. I would also say like paying down debt or trying to budget and save money.
Absolutely. Financial goals are a huge New Year's resolution. Awesome. Spending more time with friends, definitely. Traveling more. Awesome.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rachel. But yeah, all of those answers were really good. Thank you all for sharing. And yeah, there are definitely some common themes that we can observe across resolutions. So according to a survey conducted in 2021, we know that nearly 50% of US adults resolve to exercise more, 44% to eat healthier, 41% to lose weight, 34% to spend more time with family and friends, and 24% to live more economically. So things like saving more, spending less, that kind of thing. So from the survey, we can see some common themes across New Year's resolutions, such as some of the ones listed on this slide here, like weight loss, exercise, eating habits, and money, and also things having to do with interpersonal relationships.
So we wanted to share this statistic with you. So on average, only 9 to 12% of people report feeling successful in their New Year's resolutions by the end of the year. But there are some things that we do want to keep in mind when we're thinking about this statistic. So first off, this is only for people who have made New Year's resolutions. That's not everyone. Maybe making a New Year's resolution is not your thing. That's completely okay, whatever you're most comfortable with. And also this statistic is based on how each individual will define success and accomplishment. And that's going to look really different for everybody. Two people may have really similar goals, but the way they define success and the way they see success in reaching that goal can be completely different. Success is a very subjective thing. So that's also another important thing to keep in mind.
Definitely. And with all that being said, we do know that it is a very common experience to not feel successful in our New Year's resolutions. And although that may not be your experience, we know that it is common. So we want to recognize some reasons that this may be the case with a myth versus fact activity. So to start off, this again, y'all can shout your answers out, to unmute, throw them in the chat, whatever you prefer. But myth or fact, so setting unrealistic New Year's resolutions, whether they are too easy or too difficult, is one reason that people don't feel successful in their resolutions. I think. I'm seeing a lot of facts facts and truths coming in. And yes, that is in fact a fact. So if the resolution that we set is too easy, it may be harder, or we may achieve our goal a little too quickly, which might take away from that feeling of success. But on the other hand, if it's too difficult, then we may not achieve our final goal at all, which could be discouraging. But it is also very important to keep in mind that it's up to the individual and up to you to define exactly what an unrealistic resolution is. And that's just something very important to consider when setting resolutions.
Awesome. All right, so the next one is myth or fact. Tracking your progress on a New Year's resolution prevents you from accomplishing it. What do we think? Yeah. Nice. I'm starting to see a ton of myths rolling in the chat. That is correct. This is a myth. We want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this one is a myth. Tracking your progress can actually really increase your resolution consistency. We do know that not all resolutions, they can't be accomplished in a single day. It really depending on your New Year's resolutions. You know, some people may take a month, some people may take like multiple ones, some people may take like an entire year. Everyone's going to be on their own timeline when accomplishing their New Year's resolutions. So really having that time to be able to track and process what you're going to can give you that time to reflect and also look back on all of that hard work that you've put in throughout the year. And reflecting can be really easy, and tracking your progress can be super easy. You can use like the notes app on your phone, a journal, a calendar, really anything, but it can be a really helpful tool when really reaching our New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, exactly. So then the next one is knowing the why or the motivation behind a New Year's resolution can help you accomplish it. Do y'all think this is a myth or a fact? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of facts, a lot of truths coming through. And yes, it is a fact. So a lot of people, when setting resolutions, maybe might not feel successful in achieving their goals because their why is unclear. So the why of a New Year's resolution is the source of motivation to achieve your goal. So reflecting on and being in touch with why you are working towards what you're working towards can make it a lot easier to achieve.
All right. Setting a New Year's resolution that focuses on avoiding a certain behavior increases the likelihood of feeling successful in accomplishing a resolution. I know it's very wordy, but is that one a myth or a fact? Yep, most people are saying myth. Awesome. You all are correct. This is a myth. We're going to go over some reasons on why this is in a little bit. But effective goals move you towards a particular object rather than away from something you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, so now our last myth or fact, setting specific New Year's resolutions that work towards larger life goals increases our motivation to accomplish both types of goals. Do you think this is a myth or a fact? Yeah, I'm seeing some facts, some truths in the chat. And yeah, that is a fact. So focusing on both abstract and specific goals motivates us to pursue them more than just focusing on one or the other. So by this, what we mean is kind of like setting broader goals, more long-term goals, can be achieved, especially when we're combining them with setting like smaller, more specific goals. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, and we can definitely combine both in setting resolutions.
Yeah, thank you all for participating in that myth or fact activity. But these are just some more reasons on why we may not feel successful in reaching our New Year's resolution. So the first one is setting unrealistic resolutions, and that can be something that's either really too easy or something that may be too difficult to accomplish. Another one is having unclear resolutions, maybe something that's too vague, or we may be missing that step of how we are going to reach that goal and that action that we are planning on doing. Another one is a lack of planning and tracking. We just talked about this, kind of like using your phone, using a calendar, but really having that time so you're able to reflect and see what you have already accomplished. And then another one is a lack of accountability. This kind of goes back into planning and tracking. But when we are trying to reach our goals, it is really important that we are taking that time to have that self-reflection. When we are working on our resolutions and our goals, we want it to be on us. We don't want to we don't want to rely on anyone else. So really taking that time to have accountability and taking the time to self-reflect can be really helpful when we are reaching our goals. And then another really important one of why we may not feel successful is knowing the differences between intentions and a desire. So we're talking about a desire. A desire is an intention without that motivation, without that, like, what are you going to do to reach towards that goal? So some intentions may lead to an action, but not all of them. And that when we are focusing just on those desires, it's going to lack that motivation, and it's going to lack that, like, what are you going to do? So again, we're going to go over some skills that we can use and some steps that we can do to get that action and to get that step, and really motivating ourselves to reach those goals.
Yeah, so building off of what Rachel was saying, there are a lot of different ways and skills that we can adopt to kind of make our resolutions easier to achieve. And one of these is being more intentional about the way we're setting goals. So we want to bring up this idea of differentiating between approach-oriented and avoidance-oriented goals. So approach-oriented goals focus on a positive outcome or state, whereas avoidance-oriented focus more on a negative outcome or state. So the examples we provide here would look like something for approach-oriented being stepping into a leadership position in an RSO, whereas avoidance-oriented is avoiding procrastinating for a final project. So effective goals move you towards a particular objective rather than away from something you're trying to avoid. And having a more approach-oriented, more positive outcome-focused mindset and goal setting can make our resolutions a little bit easier to achieve. And just because something is avoidance oriented doesn't mean that it can't be reframed as approach oriented. So we also want to introduce this idea of turning avoidance oriented goals into approach oriented ones. So on our left, we have some examples of avoidance oriented goals. So building off of that example of avoiding procrastination that we brought up on the last slide, we can reframe that to be more approach oriented by saying things like, I will start academic projects at least 2 weeks before they are due. And by doing this, we can kind of reframe our mindset and the way we're going about setting our goals so that they are less oriented around a negative outcome. The second example right here is, I want to spend less time on my phone before bed. And instead of avoiding that time on phone, sorry, instead of avoiding that time on your phone before bed, there we go, we can reframe that to be more approach-oriented and more positive-oriented by transforming that goal into something like, I will read 1 chapter before bed. And yeah, so now we can take some time to practice. Feel free to jot them in the chat. I know it can kind of take a little bit of time of reflection before jumping into transforming our goals from avoidance oriented to approach oriented. But if you can think of any examples or how you may be able to shift your goals to be more approach oriented, we can take the opportunity to throw them in the chat, shout them out. But I will say, full disclosure, I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen. But
I could read them out for you if you'd like. Someone said
that would be amazing, Rachel.
Yeah. So instead of saying like being more balanced with my time, your approach oriented goal would be ending work at 5 p.m. and then taking 2 days off a month.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really, really good example. Yeah. Lovely. Well, now we'll go on to another way of setting goals.
Yep. So the next goal or next skill that we want to talk about is knowing the difference between superordinate and subordinate goals. So earlier when I talked about some reasons why we may not feel successful in reaching our goals, is because our goals may be too vague. they may be too abstract, and we might be missing those really specific goals of how we're going to reach those goals. So the example we have here, your superordinate goal, again, that more abstract goal is going to be, I want to lead a more healthy lifestyle. We can think of this goal as more of that overarching like theme of that goal. And then those subordinate goals are very specific goals of how we are going to reach that higher goal. So if our abstract goals, like I want to live a more healthy lifestyle, the specific goals of how we're going to do that is going to be, maybe it's going on a 30-minute walk every day. You want to change the way that you're cooking, or you want to cook more meals for yourself, or you want to start journaling more. Really making this differentiate can help us, again, get that action of how we are going to reach those goals. Cliff, you want to go on to the next slide? And actually, when we think about it, if we're working towards both of these goals, they can really help with each other. If we're working towards a subordinate goal, that can really help us reach that overarching superordinate goal. And especially in the long run, again, this is going to help us be really successful. And then one way it can help us think of these subordinate goals is to think of tiny habits, because we do know that changing our behavior, it is a really large task. So we like to take these things called tiny habits, which is going to help us build those habits over time, but starting really small, and then again, working over to that overarching bigger goal that we have. So when we're talking about a tiny habit, we're going to take like a goal or like some sort of action that we want, and we're going to make it really, really, really simple. For example, if your goal is, I want to start reading more, instead of saying, I'm going to read like 3 chapters a night, that is a very big goal. But the smaller goal, the tiny habit you'd be, is maybe start with, I'm going to read 1 paragraph every day, or I'm going to read 2 paragraphs every day. And the whole idea of tiny habits is to make this goal or make this tiny habit part of your routine every day. So if you end up finding yourself, you're reading your paragraph, you wanted to read more, that's completely okay. But it's really just getting the idea of getting that tiny habit of reading that paragraph every day to help you reach that overarching goal of wanting to read more. Does this make sense? I know that was a lot of talking. If anyone has any questions about this. Yeah, basically the idea is you want to get very specific with your goals to help you move towards that action of how I am going to reach that overarching goal.
Yeah, exactly. And like Rachel was saying, please feel free to stop us by throwing something in the chat, shouting out. We're happy to answer any questions and provide any clarification that we can. But another idea that we want to introduce in tripping over my words. Another idea that we want to introduce in encouraging us to achieve our resolution is this idea of if-then action planning. So if-then action planning allows us to take advantage of our brain's preference to make associations by tying our overall goal to a situational cue rather than depending on a random moment. And we really want to emphasize how tying something to a random moment versus a consistent situational cue can help us achieve our goals by providing this example. So if our main goal is to save money, a random moment that could potentially spur action would be a friend inviting you out to eat. And this could look like you remembering, oh, I had this goal to save money. I'm going to say no to my friend so that I can take steps to work to this goal and to work toward this goal. And while this may work sort of in the short term, it can be a lot more beneficial to build more long-term behaviors by basing them off of situational cues. So for example, if every time you get a paycheck, then you put $50 into your savings account, that is a more repetitive, consistent way to be taking steps towards your goal. Cool. So now we have a quick video, kind of just touching on some stuff that we've covered and also alluding to some stuff we will cover in the next few slides.
You may have to, because we can't hear it. When you share
Oh no.
when you share your screen, there's the box that says like share audio. Do you know how to do that?
Let me do it right now. You know what I'll do? I'll stop sharing my screen, reshare it super quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's see. I'm so sorry about that, everyone. Okay, let's see. Optimize. Okay, it should hopefully be working now. Can everyone see my screen again? Maybe? Okay, let's try this again.
The new year is quickly approaching, and you know what that means. Countless New Year's resolutions that you're gonna create and then fail to follow through on. Only 9.2% of people ever achieve their New Year's resolutions. But after watching this video, your odds will be much improved. What's going on, guys? Dr. Jabal, MedSchoolInsiders.com. So many of us get a jolt of excitement and inspiration for the new year. New year, new you. It's a clean slate, a chance to redefine yourself. So you set off on creating a list of things that you want to do differently this year, and 12 months later, you find yourself leaving those promises unfulfilled. And then the cycle repeats. So why do New Year's resolutions fail? The problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Right now, you rely on bursts of motivation and inspiration to carry your behavior changes. But as I've spoken about at length in other videos, that doesn't sustain you. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Not only that, but most of us suck. We say things like, quit smoking, or lose weight. Maybe you've set out to read more books, or eat more healthy food, or even learn to play an instrument. These goals place the focus way down the road, far at the finish line. In short, it's unrealistic, unsustainable, and doomed to fail. When setting your New Year's resolutions and defining your goals, they should be smart. Obviously, you don't want stupid goals, but when I say smart, I'm referring to goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, results-focused, and time-bound. Rather than read more books, try read one nonfiction book every 2 weeks by spending 30 minutes each night reading before sleeping. Rather than get in shape, try losing 5 pounds of body fat in 8 weeks by tracking my food intake and eating at a caloric deficit of 400 calories. Rather than double my bench press, try improving my 1 rep max by 10% in 3 months. Rather than go on social media less, try track my social media use daily using the iOS screen time feature and secure an average of 15 minutes or less per day over 7 days. And rather than learn to play an instrument, try learn to play 1 song on guitar in 3 weeks. Nice. Now your goals are rock solid and you're ready to take on all those New Year's resolutions, right? Not so fast. Even with rock-solid SMART goals, you're still quite likely to face some roadblocks. With too many goals and too few systems in place to reliably implement and sustain them, it just won't work. Instead, as Charles Duhigg points out in The Power of Habit, focus on a keystone habit that results in a domino effect aligning multiple other areas in your life. Remember that small, incremental improvements are more likely than dramatic shifts to actually result in the outcome you desire. For me, that was simply prioritizing going to the gym at minimum 5 days a week, but optimally 6 days per week. This was my keystone habit. I didn't target a certain weight on my lifts, rapid muscle gain, cardiovascular fitness, or even postural improvements. All of those are important outcomes to me, but I knew they would fall in line if I just managed to be consistent in going to the gym. And after a few months of sticking to it, I'm proud to say that I have indeed come a long way. Going to the gym almost every day required me to ride my bike, so of course my cardiovascular fitness improved. Lifting regularly contributed to an increase in appetite, so I added mass and strength. I performed a balanced weight training program, so naturally my posture and flexibility improved as well. Figure out what your own keystone habit is and drive your energy and focus there. Next, Embrace the inevitable. It's going to happen. Whether 1 week or 1 month into the new year, you are going to slip up. You'll miss that day at the gym, or you'll find yourself watching F1 racing when you should have been studying instead. The fact that you slipped in a moment of weakness isn't the important part. The important part is what you
Yeah, so that video left off on a little
The
bit
new
of
year
a cliffhanger. So, Rachel, I wonder what it could be saying. What is this important part?
Yeah, it was quite a sharp ending. But they sort of started to allude to this at the end. That self-compassion is a skill that we can use to help ourselves when we may not feeling successful in our New Year's resolution. So before we talk about how like we can use self-compassion, it's important to know what self-compassion is. So can we go to the next slide? Awesome, thank you. So self-compassion can be broken off into 3 parts. We have self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. So first, starting off with self-kindness, we want to work towards being more self-kind to ourselves rather than being judgmental and being very self-critical. So really, this is all about really being kind to yourself when we are making those mistakes. And like supporting ourselves and encourage ourselves when we are making the mistakes. So the mistake or the example I'm going to give is like maybe you didn't do as well as you like to on a test, or you didn't study as much. It is going to be very natural to be very judgmental to ourselves, to say very like hard things to ourselves, saying like, oh, I messed up, and being really hard on ourselves. But instead of being that very judgmental, we really want to focus on being kind to ourselves. So even when you are making those mistakes, and if you may reach those mistakes, just kind of accepting it how it is, being kind to yourself. I like to think of this one as the way we talk to a friend. So if a friend comes to us and say, oh, I didn't do as well, we'd want to encourage them and we want to build them up, not say all these terrible things. So we really want to be talking to ourselves like we would be talking to a friend. And then the next one is common humanity. And this one is all about recognizing that it is normal to experience flaws or to experience mistakes. It's all part of the lived human experience. So going back to the test example I gave, when we do make those mistakes, it is very natural to want to self-isolate, start to engage those thoughts of like, why did this happen to me? And really disconnect ourselves. But common humanity, just like I mentioned, is all about that. It's about the shared human experience. And it's all about feeling connected rather than isolating when we are going through those hardships and challenges. And finally, the third part of self-compassion is mindfulness. And mindfulness is really allowing us just to be present, be aware, and notice like what's going on and notice our thoughts without being judgmental. Here we have mindfulness versus over-identification. This is all talking about with mindfulness, we just want to recognize our thoughts, but we want to recognize those thoughts for what they are. Our thoughts are just thoughts. So instead of over-identifying with them, we want to be mindful of them, acknowledge that they're there, and just acknowledge the pain, but not try to turn away and run around from it.
Yeah, so we also really do want to emphasize that self-compassion is a skill, and it takes practice. So it takes time and effort to turn compassion inwards and kind of be kind and less judgmental to ourselves, and acknowledging that something can be difficult, like a New Year's resolution can be difficult. This doesn't necessarily mean that it will be difficult, but in the case that it is very important to give ourselves grace. So one way that we can practice self-compassion or by writing letters of self-compassion. So this kind of alludes to what Rachel was saying on the last slide, with thinking of if you would be speaking to a friend the way you're speaking to yourself. So in writing a self-compassion letter, we can think about something that we maybe don't like about ourselves or want to change, and write a letter to yourself from the perspective of someone who loves and cares about you. And this allows us to kind of reflect and address ourselves more positively. And then along with this, we also have journaling, which can help us learn about our own thoughts and kind of gain self-awareness. And in taking time to reflect, maybe on our day, on our problems, or on how we've been going about achieving our goals, we can also identify areas of growth. And finally, we also want to bring up meditation, which also is an opportunity to reflect and kind of center in on ourselves, and also build an ability to recognize our thoughts as just thoughts, and also kind of just prevent that from uh, taking too much negative energy. And along with this, there are different types of specific compassion meditation techniques. Some examples that we want to bring up are self-compassion guided meditation and body scan meditation. And both of these, along with the other skills mentioned, are just some ways to help us build that skill of self-compassion.
So this is bringing us towards the end of this workshop. Before I ask this question, I just want to ask if there's any questions about any of the skills that we talked about, anything about self-compassion. Now would be a really good time to do that. Awesome. Well, if there's no questions for us, we have a question for you. What skills are you going to try to use and feeling more successful for your New Year's resolutions? Again, if you feel comfortable, you can unmic, or you can put it in the chat. I see being self-compassionate when I slip up with all my goals, keystone habits. Anything else? Oh, remember to coordinate my resolution to what I'm moving towards. Finding community can be hard. Absolutely. Positively orienting my goals and being self-compassionate as I work through the subordinate goals towards the bigger picture. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all for sharing. We'll go on to the next slide, but feel free to keep writing in the chat. We can all learn some goals together.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you again all for sharing. Please feel free to shout out any questions, put them in the chat. Rachel and I would love to answer, but we would also love you to take a minute to scan the QR code and fill out a feedback form. So a lot of our presentations are tailored specifically so that they're most effective for the audiences we're presenting to. So we would love you to take the time to give us some thoughts on your on the presentation, things you liked, maybe things you wish we focused a little bit more on, or even just some feedback for Rachel and I as presenters. And I'll leave this up here for a second so that y'all could scan it. Thank you so much.
I love reading everybody's goals in the chat.
Okay. And as y'all are filling that out, I will throw it back on over to Rachel for the LiveWell promo and how to connect with us.
Yeah, these are just some more ways you can connect with us. You can follow us on Instagram. Here we post about some different workshops and other things that we're working on. But also over the next couple of weeks, we've been doing some Peer Health Educator Instagram takeovers. So if you want a chance to meet some of us, that's a great place to start. You can also follow us on Facebook. We have our LiveWell Huskies magazine that we talked about at the beginning that has just some cool articles and so check that out. Finally, the most important one for any of the services Chloe and I mentioned at the beginning, that's done at livewell.uw.edu. And that's all we have. Thank you all for being such an amazing crowd.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
And thank you all. That was some really good info, and I appreciate the refresher on being self-compassionate, as that's where I struggle and get lost all the time. Thank you folks for attending today. As I mentioned, we'll be sending this recording out for folks that missed it, and also as a refresher on the content. And we'll be sending you some upcoming events and other things that you might like to check out. Thank you, take good care, and thank you all, LiveWell team. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.